Hello there, Hawks fans, and welcome to episode 1 of the Hawks Postflight Report. I'm your host, Will Jackson, and with me today is Hawks head coach Josh Lovelady. How are you doing today, Coach Lovelady?
Doing good. Glad to be here.
Oh, fantastic. We've got a great show for you guys today. And for those of you who may have missed it, the Hawks played their first game of the season this past Saturday at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the Corky Kell Classic. The Hawks matchup with Walton was intended to be the matchup of the day, and it did not disappoint, as two of the top teams in the state faced off in what became one of the most entertaining high school football games I've ever seen. Mill Creek defeated Walton 44-41 in a down-to-the-wire thrilling finish, but more on that later. For now, Coach, can I get your general thoughts on the way the game played out? Did it go the way you anticipated, and were you surprised at all by anything Walton threw at you?
I don't know if it 44-41 the first game is what I anticipated, but I did anticipate it's going to be as a great team we're going against. They were semifinalists last year. They had 4 or 5 guys that came into the program from other programs that were plug-and-play guys that I knew had a lot of athletic ability. So we knew we had our hands full, but we just kind of didn't know how it was all going to pan out.
Absolutely. Now, as far as hands full, I wanted to ask your general thoughts on their wide receiver core. Was there anything that they threw at you that became a big challenge for you to stop as far as wide receivers, string speed, just thoughts on having to stop them with your secondary? How did that go?
Well, they number one, it started off with the quarterback. He's a great talent. I think you'll be hearing a lot from him in the next couple of years as far as him being able to throw from different arm slots on the run. His arm strength was huge. So regardless who he's thrown to, the quarterback's got to be able to put there, and he did. But they had a couple guys that were very fast and very elusive in space. You combine that with 3 of our 4 guys in the secondary were new starters this year. So that was a little bit of a challenge of, hey, the first time you're going out there, you're going against a quarterback that can throw it really well, and 2 or 3 dynamic college-bound receivers. That's a lot of the first test. So you didn't sit there and just put your toe in the water. We jumped in there in that challenge. But our kids, we made modifications. We modified as we went along, and we'll grow from this point.
Absolutely. Now, do you feel as far as your secondary went, did they play up to your expectations, or was there a little bit more that you were kind of hoping to get out of them?
I think you always sit there and want to, if you're a defensive guy, you want to shut out people. You don't limit them to points. So I think our guys realize that that's not the bar defensively to give up that many points, but also realize that, hey, if we would have done this or that or whatever, control the controllables of maybe some communication, maybe turn our hips and run a little sooner, whatever it may be, and don't bite on this or stay inside leverage. I think everything that we saw that resulted in some situations were fixable. It wasn't lack of effort. It
Absolutely.
wasn't lack of desire, because there was heart. They played their butts off all day long.
Absolutely. You saw that from everybody in that game. It was one of the most physical games I've ever seen as far as just effort and just the desire to win. Do you feel like you guys just kind of took over that momentum as the game progressed, or do you feel like it was kind of back and forth the whole time?
It was back and forth all the way to the fourth quarter. I mean, you can see in the last, 2-3 minutes, it was back and forth, 2 different possessions.
Absolutely.
And then that's last 4 minutes of the game. However, I do think that going through it, our leadership showed through. You had a lot of kids that maybe they were cramping, or maybe they got dinged up early in the game. They could have tapped out, and they didn't. And our leadership came through the end there offensively, first of all, defensively, getting a stop there, making them punt, and then turn around offensively, driving it down, getting a score to go ahead score, and then go back to the defense again, in a prevent mode of making plays to keep them out of the end zone.
Now, some folks last year may have been led to believe that the offense kind of thrived off of the success of the defense. Do you feel like you would agree with that statement, or do you feel like last year was kind of just both units operating as kind of their own thing? And do you feel like, if you do agree with the statement, do you feel like the offense is going to be able to take that next step based off what you saw in that first game?
That's a tough question, and the reason for that is I think every game has its different dynamics. You have, and it's not like the NFL where pretty much everybody's a professional. This is high school football. You're going to have different matchups that are going to be this week. It's our strength to run the ball. Next week it's going to hey, we've got ability to throw on these guys all night long. Defensively, same way. It's, hey, we got to stop this. They're one-dimensional. We stop the run, they have no one to go to. So every week it's a little different, even last year. And we got to find our identity this year going into it to figure out, okay, what is our strengths, guard them, and then what is our weaknesses, and work on them week in and week out as we go through this journey.
Speaking of strengths, do you feel like the offensive line was one of your strengths this game, particularly in the run blocking? Because we saw a lot of big holes for players such as Caleb Downs and Cam Robinson, where they were averaging like 5-6 yards a rush. Do you feel like that's one of your big strengths heading into this season?
I think it was unknown, all right, as far as going into the season. We had 3 new starters, all right, on the offensive line, and even the guys that were coming back, two of the linemen that were returning starters were banged up in the offseason. One of them had a surgery, another one has been dinged up a little bit. So we were a little bit of like, oh, what are we going to do? How is it going to go? And during preseason, there's not a lot of time to figure out going against each other, how good are you, all right, until the lights come on, especially that position. But I was very pleased with their development. Do we got some little things we got to fix? Oh, yeah. All right. Zone steps or pad level, things like that. But I think those guys all average 60 to 75 plays each, and that's a lot of plays. And if you look at the last of the game, I think there's a big, even just that little sample size, we were able to protect Hayden, all right, very well as we went in a 2-minute. All right. The offensive line, no pressure. He's sitting back there throwing the ball easily. Where we defensively, if you flip it the next time, we were getting pressure at the quarterback, and he's on his back foot throwing because our defensive line was getting some push. So I think it's going to be one of those things where they continue to develop. They've got a lot of talent, and I think the offensive line could eventually be a strength for us. But right now, it's a small sample size.
Absolutely. So going forward, is there anything specific you want to see growth-wise from the offensive line, just as far as like scheme-wise or compatibility with each other?
Yeah, I think a lot of the compatibility, we do a lot of different combination blocks. They got to communicate, all right? And if they're not communicating, they better be on the same page, all right, as far as blitzes and the different schemes that we're going to get week in and week out. We've had one scheme, right, one opportunity. What the next time is when you have a different people across you and they're giving different looks. I think that's that's going to be the challenge as we go forward. Is what is it, and cleaning up our technique. All right? Offensive line is such a technical thing. People pass set, that's not a natural movement. All right? Receivers, they run forward. We walk forward. We jog forward. But being able to pass set is not a natural movement. So that's something you better be very technical at and drill it week in and week out.
Did you like what you saw out of the running back core, just as far as trying to replace Donovan Journey? As far as replacing Donovan Journey, do you feel like we've taken a good first step in this first game as far as just figuring out what we're going to do at the running back position?
Yeah, we got it like committee. Last year was by committee with Donovan and Joe. Now we got Cam Robinson as probably as our starter. You got a few guys in there that could definitely be a 1A, 1B, 1C with Kevin Mitchell came in and got some really good, had a good series in there. But he also starts a linebacker, all right? You got Josh England's been a little bit banged up, but he's starting at linebacker as well. So we kind of, it's by committee, so to speak. Then you put Caleb in there a few snaps, and he does a tremendous job. So I think it's one of those positions that we have the core group of them are very similar. All right, they're physical runners. They can catch the ball out in space, and they're big enough to be able to block and be able to pass block or run block for the other folks.
Continuing on with we're going to cut here, and I'm going to keep going. So as far as durability goes, and you mentioned players like England starting on defense and playing running back, is there any concern, considering we saw multiple players go down for a few plays with cramps, as far as just heading into the season? Do you feel like that could become an issue as far as injuries?
Yeah, it is. It's a risk reward. All right. Do you have a risk of playing someone on both sides of the ball? Yes. All right, because of the injuries, more reps, more opportunities for them to get hurt. But then you look at the reward. All right, there's more opportunities for playmakers to make plays. Last time I checked, there's not a receiver on the sideline that's catching a touchdown. There's not a running back that's on the sideline that's going to be rushing for a touchdown. He's got to be on the field of play. So we got to find that balance. What is too much? All right. So and that's where I think even in the dome we had a lot of juice going. It's Saturday afternoon, which is a little different atmosphere. So we got to find out pace on offense, all right, to be able to go along with our defensive guys. All right. Do we need to slow it down a little bit to limit the game not being just a track meet? All right, to where reps are going to be a premium in the fourth quarter. So we're trying to feel this out too. We've never in Mill Creek, since I've been here, and I've been here since day one, had this many folks that are able to go both ways. They have the skill set that you as a coach sit there and go like, well, if he can catch, why isn't he out there? If he's one of our best 11, one of our best 14 offense or best 14 on defense, we need to get him out there, all right, that individual. All right, because every play counts when you're going against quality opponents, just like Walton.
Now, continuing on, just as far as the special teams game is concerned, so we know that Trace Butcher is gone. Do you feel like Jacob impressed you enough to step up as the next replacement for Trace Butcher, just as far as kicking-wise? Because we saw he kicked that 56-yarder just like Butcher did in the Corky Kell last year. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like he's going to be better or as good? What are your thoughts on it?
I think, number one, we always knew he had a big leg. You know what I'm saying? He does a good job in kickoffs. I think he had 7 or so, or 8, I can't remember, of touchbacks. I don't have my stats in front of me. Had, the 2 field goals. One was a big one, the 56, so it definitely. But, you had 2 of them right there that were that one barely made it. That's kind of like, oh, did you turf it? Did you whatever? So we're looking at the kicking game. It's all about consistency. Can you consistently, I trust that he's got a leg to hit it from 56, hit 57, 58. All right, but you've got to be able to be consistent in your approach and just be able to hit it. When he hits it hard and just goes out there and just swings away, that's what he does the best thing. Last year he was our punter, so he got a taste of the nerves and the game action. So it's not nothing new as far as that. He averaged 40 yards punt, and we had a tremendous with our gunners and our snappers, the timing of it, and our punt team. So that was a huge strength for us to be able to flip the field at times.
And my final question to you is, you mentioned atmosphere earlier. Do you feel like some of your newer stars were intimidated having their first starting meaningful game, being at the Corky Kell in the big stadium, Mercedes-Benz, just with all the fans and the TV? Do you feel like your players were intimidated? And what was your message to kind of calm the nerves of some of those guys?
Well, we didn't use the word intimidation. It's more pressure. I think there's pressure. When you come after last year being a quarterfinalist and you got some pressure on you to be good this year, all right, with some of the athletes you have around you, if you're that guy in the room going like, I better get going here, all right? Sometimes you can try to do too much. And sometimes you need the little nudge of going like, let's go. Everybody's going this way. So I think there was some pressure in there, and I talked to the boys about it, going like being able to deal with the pressure, how to compartmentalize it. Don't try to do too much. Do your job and trust the guy beside you and the guy behind you is going to do their job, and that's where all the pieces fit together. I think there was some awe factor of it being a Mercedes. It's like you said, it's the marquee game in the state of Georgia. 4 o'clock in a professional building, with a halo board and everything else. As a high school athlete, that's elite. So there's going to be nerves, but the idea of what I talked to them about is going like, take those nerves and turn it into positive. It's your body's reaction to exciting times. And it was an exciting game. It was exciting for those players to be out there. So don't take it as you being not confident or not prepared. It's just that, hey, this is why you play the game, for those butterflies. This is why we play at Mill Creek, and this is the big type atmosphere that we've earned the right to be in, and that we perform in.
So you would say overall that a lot of your players responded very well to that pressure, because obviously we saw a lot of big plays and a lot of meaningful plays. So overall, you'd say yes, that your players handled it very well.
I think they did, but now in the game, you can see some things of it was some of the mistakes we made, were they technical, or I don't think any of it was effort. I don't question our effort of our team at all, but I do think sometimes some of the awe factor of like their eyes were looking too much right here rather than, hey, worry about one thing, worry about your guy, not here. And sometimes we that our eyes or the bigness of the game got too on. But I think what happened was, if that happened anytime, individually or as a position, we leveled ourselves back off. And that's where I was the resiliency at the end of the game, when things could have went bad, things were kind of like back and forth. Okay, who's going to outlast, like a heavyweight fight? We just kept on going to work, and I was proud of our kids for that.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. Coach Lovelady has his thoughts on the game, and we hope you enjoyed the game as well. We will see you back here next week. The Hawks play Norcross this Friday at 7:30. We hope to see you at the game, and we'll be back next week for episode 2. For now, I'm Will Jackson, and thank you for watching. You have a great afternoon.